This is Project 15, the 24-step color wheel in Photoshop. These next projects rely pretty heavily on files from recent assignments. For this one, begin with the Photoshop color wheel that you just recently did. The first part of these instructions show you how I got what is the unmerged or unrefined 24-step color wheel. This is a file that I will give you at the conclusion of this presentation, and it is what you will be using to create the next step. Each of you will be assigned a color. Some of you will actually be generating more than one. So I started off with the color wheel that we all created. Note the position of the rule lines in this example. They divide the circle into quarters. And I created a layer and named it quarters and used them as a basis for the first division using my paintbrush tool with black lines. Then I created a new layer and did diagonals from the corner to corner. This divides the color wheel into eighths. I then copied the layer and created the eighths mark and have rotated it slightly to create sixteenths. And one more copy and one more rotation divides it into 24ths. Note that the colors are not solid definitive colors, but rather are the transitional states between colors, much like the ones that you created when doing your acrylic paint versions. In order to create an orderly frame for this 24-step color wheel, I added a black center and an exterior black color field. Once they are all on, note that they do a pretty good job of dividing the colors up, but what is necessary is the defining of the colors into the 24 definitive steps. That is where you as a class come in. So in order to give you the file, I had taken all of the layers necessary to compose the frame and merge them into one, and then dropped it over the Photoshop color wheel. I then saved it as a file. This is the one that you will be getting a copy of. Let me give you a brief demonstration of what you are going to be doing next. Here I'm going to demonstrate how we will convert the transitional color wheel into a converted or refined color wheel of 24 distinct colors. Note that I have selected one wedge and it is highlighted with the marching ants. I used my magic wand tool to select the wedge area. This is easy since the black frame is darker than any of the colors in the wheel itself. Now, using my color picker, the eyedropper tool on your tool palette, select a sample of color from the wedge area. In this particular case, I want to ensure that the color I create is not at all like the color to the immediate right, which is a red-orange. So I've selected my color from the extreme left side of the sample area. With the sample area still selected, I color in the entire wedge with that color. This wedge is now all one color and will have a distinct RGB designation rather than the many designations that the transitional color state has. This is what each of you will be doing. Here is what the color wheel will look like when it's completed. This is a 24-step color wheel with 24 individual colors derived from the original Photoshop color wheel. This is what it looked like before I blended the wedges, and this is what it looks like now. Note that I have now assigned them numbers. We will now take on the task of assigning those numbers to you. Everyone in the class will be doing at least one of these colors and then be responsible for not only the creating of that color but also of the tints and shades of that color. That is the next part of the assignment. But first you will need to create your color and then figure out what gray value it matches. For that, I will be giving you this file. This is the master Hue Gray Scale file. I will be showing you how to do this by doing color number 24 myself. I should mention that I have all of the blended colors, and when you are creating your original color, you should try to come as close to my RGB numbers as possible. I will be sharing those with you as you complete your own. This will ensure that we have something to the right range of colors for the class. Now, getting back to this file, what we are going to do next is to select our color from the blended color wheel. So using the color picker, I have selected the color for number 24 and dropped it into the Hue Gray Scale file. Note that there is a frame layer and a background layer, and that the color is inserted between the two. This is just like what we did when we created the grayscale file that you just completed, so this should be familiar. Using the color picker and the color editor, I can look up the RGB value for my color, and I have written it here on the file. I want all of you to do this when you save your file. Note all of the different layers. I want everyone doing this using Arial Bold Italic 18-point type. That is so that all of these will look the same for presentation purposes in the hall, as well as for the submittal to your portfolio pages, because you're all going to be getting ones from different members of the class and you want them to all look the same. Note also that your name should be shown in the lower left-hand corner of the file. Getting back to the file, my sample now reads color 24, red 255, green 7, and blue 0. Remember our discussions of the colors in the WebSafe color presentation? These colors, or these numbers, should make some sense now. Once all of the information has been added to the file, be sure to merge all of your layers that contain the next information into that layer. This just makes the layers area less confusing, as you will be adding other layers as well. So here's what it looks like when I've completed my example. Now we're going to do the Hue Gray Scale analysis. In order to do this, I want you to use your marquee tool and select the color from the right half of your file. Here you will note that I have used my marquee and made a selection from the right hand side. I will then copy this selected area and open it in a new Photoshop file and paste the example into that new document. It should look like this. Next, I want you to go to the Image Mode Grayscale. Sorry for the partial chopped off image here. What we are doing is converting our color into a value of pure gray. We do not want any cross contamination from any other colors, only pure gray, and this is the best way to do it. Your screen prompts will ask you if you want to flatten the file. This simply means flattening the color into the locked background layer, and of course we do. And next we'll discard all of the color information. And the resultant file should look like this. This is the gray that our color number 24 would be the equivalent of in a grayscale, and we will need to know this for the next part of this process, which is the hue chroma triangle. Now we are going to copy this gray color and returning it to the Hue Grayscale file, paste it into the spot where we selected the color from moments ago. We now have both the color on the left hand side and its equivalent gray on the right hand side. And we can now see that the RGB equivalent of our red number 24 is gray RGB 130, or red 130, green 130, and blue 130. When you're done with this, it is time to move on to the next process.